For more on Interbrand's report, we're joined now by the company's CEO, Jez Frampton. Mr. Frampton, welcome to Bloomberg News.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Talk to us a little bit more about the metrics that are used when you're compiling your data.
What we're doing is effectively putting a value on the intangible asset, which is the brand. There's three things that we look at: economic value add, first of all, and then there's two marketing factors, what we call the role of brand, how the brand actually affects your purchasing, and then the second is what we call brand strength, which looks at how well brand is positioned against its competitors.
Might I ask then, given the economic climate that we found ourselves in the last 2 years, talk to me about brand strength. Did any of the top contenders suffer even a little bit because of what we're going through economically?
Well, if you take a look at the table, whilst there's obviously some risers, there are also some fallers. Companies like Harley-Davidson, the most heavily hit on the table, of course, massively dependent upon discretionary spend. So without question, brands are there to help companies reduce risk. So as you would expect, and indeed we have seen, despite some quite massive movements in the economies and the markets in which many of these operate, actually the brands have remained relatively stable. The whole table in terms of value is up about 4% this year.
When you talk about economic value of a brand, how do you measure something like that? It seems like it would be somewhat difficult to pin down.
I mean, it's kind of one of those weird things that you ask the question, but when you think about it in terms of the way that you buy things, it all becomes very, very obvious. If you buy a particular watch brand or a particular car or shop in a particular store, what we're trying to do is find out to what degree that brand, your associations with that company in terms of its image, its service, the way that you're treated, what other people think of it. And we can put a number on that and say that's how important it was, the Coke brand, in terms of you choosing that drink compared to its competitors. We then combine that with their financial performance, and that gives you a sense on the value of the asset. It's very similar to the way that you would actually value a normal tangible asset.
And how is it that Coke has remained so enduring as a brand?
Do you know, it's bizarre, we have these conversations every year because I think everyone dearly wants to see them drop off the top. But the thing is, these guys are fantastic at what they do. They are remarkably consistent. How many stories were them revolving around them in the World Cup? They reinvented the way that they marketed.
Where does that consistency come from? What is their formula for success? What are they doing that keeps them at the top of this list?
I think it's a message for every company. They are obsessed by their customers. They understand very well what it is that drives people towards their products and what it is that enables them to connect themselves to events or whatever else it is that they may be involved in.
And you say they're obsessed with their customers, but I would imagine that part and parcel of that is they listen to their customers as well.
Of course they do. And of course, in the age of social networking, understanding that is becoming more important than ever before.
Now, I was surprised when we were talking just now that Apple is not above Nokia, for example, especially since financially and sort of cachet-wise, you think of Nokia as hitting some roadblocks.
They certainly have.
But Apple is ascending relatively rapidly. So talk to us about those two and sort of how they stack up against each other.
It's very interesting. I mean, just as a straw poll, we asked people in our office this morning to put their hands up and say how many people have got a Nokia phone and how many people have got an Apple, and you can imagine what we saw. I think in terms of both of them, Nokia, of course, at one point dominated this entire sector, and Apple is growing and growing at an alarming rate still. You have to remember that Nokia's dominance across Europe and in other parts of the world plays very well into their history. I think their big question is, can they ever regain the degree of understanding of their customers, their design and everything else? Apple certainly are leading the way.
In our last 30 seconds, some of the rising stars, quickly.
Well, we talked about Apple already. Google, now number 4 in the list. And of course, their recent invention of real time kind of takes out any discussion about whether you can search any faster. Can you be faster than real time? BlackBerry, of course, as well, who really do own that kind of business level device. Interestingly, all three of those technology brands reflecting the way our lives are changing.
And you have Barclays, Zurich, Corona, Sprite, Jack Daniels,
Santander, Heineken. Yeah, it's beers and banks. We said it seemed to be the new ones coming into. Maybe it's symptoms of the economic times.
You think? Yeah, pretty much. Mr. Frampton, thank you so much. Jez Frampton, Interbrand, joining us on set. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Great pleasure.